What's going on, guys? This is Derek Ledwidge, and today I'm going to end up going over how to survive the holidays basically without losing your shit and just going off the rails and stuff like that. And so, the big reason why we are doing this is the holidays are a big time where people sort of freak out, right? They either freak out because they don't want to lose all the progress that they've been working so hard at during the last couple months, or they're freaking out because they don't want to be on a restrictive diet until January, or they know that they have that all or nothing mindset, right? There is a constant fear with going to parties, and they don't trust themselves, and they're afraid that they're just going to go like completely off the rails because it's either I'm really good or I am really bad, right? And so that is the main reason why we're bringing up this topic right now, is because it's usually a big time for people to sort of have those common fears. And it's, like I said, it is pretty common. It happens with our nutrition clients all the time. It especially happens with our clients at the facility. And so today I'm going to end up going over how to have a different mindset, right? How to set yourself up for success, and also some actionable steps on what to do with alcohol, what to do with actual events, parties, what happens when you do fall off, what do you do, stuff like that. Right. So we're going to go over all of these different things. So that way you have a whole bunch of tools in your toolbox. So that this way, the holidays, you don't gain 10, 12 pounds and then feel like you have to go on a restrictive diet right away in January, because that is definitely not the goal. All right. So the first thing that we sort of want to realize is the mindset behind this. Understand what the timeline is all about, right? There's a lot of different foods out there. It's, a lot of comfort food, sugary food, stuff like that. But the holiday is the main thing. It's a day, right? It's not 3 months, right? It is Christmas Day, or Christmas Eve, or the party with your friends, right? New Year's Eve day, right? It's all different things, right? Thanksgiving Day. So it's each one is that event, but we also have to understand why we are doing that, right? Is there a lot of delicious food there? Yes, but it's a time to sort of hang out with friends that you see every once in a year, with like alcohol around you. Going to family that you see every 6 months, stuff like that. That is the reason why we do that stuff for the holidays, as opposed to, just doing shit, right? That is the time that we are doing that. So we shouldn't really freak out about the food around us, or staying on a diet or anything like that, because these are the times it only happens generally once a year, right? So it's not a time to massively restrict. It's not what we want to do, but it doesn't mean that we just go off the rails, right? Matter of fact, a lot of times it's just having guidelines that are a little bit different, right? And it's about maintaining your weight, which honestly is usually a lot harder than actually going on a diet. Most people are generally pretty good when it comes into, hey, follow these guidelines for a diet and you're golden, right? Most people do really well with challenges. Most people do really well with, like 6-week challenges, 30-day challenges, stuff like that. But the moment they have to maintain, they don't know what to do. And so now, during the holidays, it's actually a perfect time for a mindset shift. It's about, hey, let's maintain our weight. And even all of my nutrition clients, month of December, we generally go through a diet break. We are maintaining our weight. And during that time, it doesn't mean that they go off the rails, but we're maintaining our weight and we're focusing on our training, right? We are going to lift lots of weight, right? We are going to strength train. We are going to build some of those muscles, because we're going to probably be eating more calories. It's just what's going to end up happening. So we maintain our weight during that time, right? So we're not really worried about weight loss or being really restricted, because it's no fun during that time. It doesn't mean it turns into a shit show, right? So realize that the mindset has to go around that first, right? So now, second thing, how to manage the holidays, right? The very, very first thing that I want you to do, this is what we tell all of our nutrition clients when we have our yearly meeting and stuff like that, our annual goal setting meeting, is get a calendar. Most people think that they're really, really stressed out during the time of the holidays because they're, again, afraid of all the stuff that's happening. There's so many events, there's so many, blah, 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 blah. So they don't have enough time, right? Or there's, I'm going to fall off, or I'm always going to a party and stuff like that. So what you want to do is you want to get a calendar, mark down the days that are events, right? There's probably around, like, within November, December, including like January 1st or anything like that, there's probably about 5 events, right? Generally is what's going to happen. You might have work events, stuff like that. But write down the events, right? And then, more importantly, write down the events that actually matter, right? So again, an event that doesn't really matter most of the time is, you know what, I'm going to go out for a work party. I'm going to go out to the, we're going to meet up for like 3 hours and stuff like that, and then I'm done, right? Maybe, again, that event doesn't really matter too much because it's not worth having a couple of drinks, right? When you can actually go out with friends that you see once a year, and now maybe that event actually matters, right? So mark down on the calendars, you know what events are there? Then you can actually see that the events, they're not the entire 6 weeks or 8 weeks, right? That is events. And all the other stuff, if we could control those days, we're golden, right? And now those events don't really matter, right? Because now we can control all of those things, right? So now 5 or 6 days out of 8 weeks don't really matter too much, okay? And this brings that awareness, right? So now, in order to manage a lot of this other stuff, it is what actually matters. We just said that one event, but what treats actually matter? The stale donuts at the workplace don't really matter. But you know what? Making apple pie with your grandmother or your mother because it's tradition, and then having a slice, that shit actually matters. So what actually matters? And the reason why you want to think about that is you have the control, right? And so all this stuff is going to be in front of you, right? You can easily change your environment by just not, but what actually matters, right? Make maybe cinnamon rolls on Christmas Day. That actually matters because it's tradition. So now I'm going to have 1 or 2, right? But having a week-old like donut that like you saw at the grocery store or something like that because you just want it doesn't actually matter, right? So you have to sort of think about that stuff, right? Also, know your trigger foods. If you know your trigger foods, you know that you cannot be by them, right? If your trigger food is, again, let's say donuts, right? Don't be around them, right? Because they're gonna be there, right? And if you're worried that you're gonna have one and then have like 8 of them, right? Change the environment. Don't buy them, even if someone gifts them to you because they know you like them, right? Throw them away, right? Food does not have feelings, right? The people that gave it to you, they do not have feelings after they give them to you, right? They have no idea. They just assume that you're taking them. So try not to have them, when you don't have that control, right? The next thing that you want to make sure you do is do not starve yourself pre-party, right? A lot of times people will starve themselves and then go to a party. That is massively a mistake because they're trying to save calories for that party, because then you go to a party and you're starving, right? And you're starving and around all of these highly palatable foods, right? High calorie foods, high carbs, high fats, right? And so you're just going to constantly overindulge without actually thinking about it. So that would be a massive, massive mistake. And you do not want to do that, because you're going to do that. Then you're going to feel like shit. You're going to be bloated. And you're going to feel like even more shit because you did it. And then it's going to be a snowball effect. So what should you do there? Focus on the meals beforehand. And now it turns into protein. Really focus on that. Ideally veggies as well. Makes you a little bit more fuller. You have some stuff. It has good stuff. You have some volume, and you're getting those nutrients anyway, right? So maybe having like an egg omelet, right? And, mostly egg whites, throwing some spinach, throwing some meat in there. Boom. Really light on the cheese. And protein pancakes, right? Oatmeal, stuff like that, a protein shake, whatever it is. Generally, maybe not oatmeal. Generally, you want to do that. You want to focus on the protein and the veggies. And then really low carbs, really low fats, simply because this is how we do it with going out on the weekends as well. Because at the parties, there's going to be a lot of high carbs, high fats, chips, dips, desserts, whatever it is. So now you're going to have most of those carbs and fats at that party, right? So those are some helpful tips on how to manage, right? All of these things is managing. Again, you're not going to be perfect by any means, right? You have to understand that, okay? So next thing, right? We just talked about how to have the mindset. Then we have how to manage. Now, what happens when you're at the party, right? You go to a work party, you go to a family event. The worst you could possibly do is graze, right? Because it's very mindless. You're constantly talking to people and eating. There's no mind connection with the food or with your stomach, okay? So you don't want to graze. Grazing will equal failure. And again, this is all about control. This is how we manage shit, right? And if you can do this, it creates a lot of strength and a lot of confidence in your ability, right? Even if you're not perfect. And again, you won't be perfect. So how do you do this? Eat from a plate, right? Physically go put a plate on there. Don't have chips and dip and just start going. Put everything on the dip. And then again, ideally walk away. Don't have the food right in front of you. Put it on a plate, go walk somewhere, right? Doesn't matter if you're talking to someone eating from a plate. Don't be by the stuff because you want to make it harder each time you go and do it, right? And that's sort of how you want to do it. We want to eliminate the mindless eating, right? Because now all of a sudden we just start doing like everything like crazy, okay? So now you do that. Each time you eat, ideally, wait about 15, 20 minutes and then do it again, right? You want to give it some time for your body to adjust to that food, right? And start digesting it. And then you realize that you're actually full. So eat from a plate, 15 to 20 minutes. Right? You do that. And again, it's managing the amounts because a lot of these parties are longer too. So you're just constantly eating food that's around there, right? So as you're eating, what do you want to look at, right? We want to focus on the protein first, right? So usually Thanksgiving, it might be turkey. I'm going to do that and maybe some green bean casserole, even though the green beans is going to have a whole bunch of stuff on it. It's not just going to be green beans, but you're going to have that and your veggie, right? I'm going to have that, put that on the plate. Then I'm going to focus on the carbs and the fats, right? Maybe it's sweet potatoes. Maybe it is like in some sort of like casserole, something like that. Maybe it might be a dessert. And just like anything else, you want to see if it's worth it or not, right? So a great example is, you know what? I'm going to have this stuffing, but I'm not going to have this roll that's cold and it's flaky and it's not really that good, and I'm not going to have that, right? Because why? Just because it's there, I'm not going to just have it, right? But maybe a roll that is fresh out of the oven and butter just melts on it, I'm sure as hell going to have that, right? Or it's really good bread or really good like dessert that you really like. I'm going to have that, but I'm not just going to have some random shit that I don't really care about. So when it comes to the carbs, the desserts, the fats, look at it. Is it worth it? Okay. Is it going to be really, really good? Right. Or is it just something that you're having because it's there? Right. Make the stuff that is worth it. That's how we go through the parties. Right. So again, each one of these is more of the action steps. Right. So now, next action step, alcohol. Alcohol is a huge thing during parties, right? It's part of most people's lives. If it's not part of your life, it's generally not part of my life, so I really don't have to worry about it. But if it's part of yours, how do we handle this shit, right? So ideally, cut out the sugar, right? Don't look for those, margaritas, those daiquiris, things like that are really, really high sugar, high calories. Beer is a tipping point as well, especially when you get to those IPAs, right? Ideally, go for something like, I'm going to have some vodka and or like seltzers, right? Vodka, put some Crystal Light or Mio in there, have it with like club soda or water. Boom, there you go. There's a good drink. And that way you can save some calories for some of the other stuff. Or again, massive amount of seltzers that are out there, like those Trulies, anything like that. That will help out as well. Next step, alcohol, drink some water in between, and then have another alcoholic drink. It will cut out the amount you have. You'll be aware of it. It'll keep you hydrated, and it just takes some more of managing the calories instead of just going crazy. Last thing, same thing as what we did before, pick your events. Just like I mentioned before, going out to a work party that doesn't really matter. You don't want to be there, right? You're only going to be there for a couple hours. Does that event actually matter? Or are you just doing it because you're bored and you want to be like everyone else, right? Why waste the calories there or waste the calories on a stale donut when you are going out with college friends that you see once a night or once a year, right? That actually probably matters. So that is when I'm going to actually drink, right? And so that is a lot of that stuff. Pick your events. That's the really big thing that happens. All right. Next thing, right? Next actionable step, next event. What happens when the family comments? And this is a big thing, right? Family, friends will comment. They will say some stuff, oh, it's rude not to have this, or you're always on a diet, or, why aren't you doing this, right? Understand that it is 100% your choice. We should not make our choices by peer pressure. We say that to kids all the time, and most people fall into peer pressure. So how do we end up doing this, right? Again, understand that it is 100% your choice. And one of the worst things that you could probably say is no, because I'm watching my weight, or no, because I, can't have that, or I don't, blah, 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 blah. Right? That's generally one of the worst things you do, because it's still going to give you another negative reaction from them. And honestly, it's going to have a negative reaction to yourself. Instead, what we want to do is just understand you could easily be like, no, when I notice I have that, or I have too many drinks, or I have too many, I feel like shit. And I don't really want to, I have some stuff to do tomorrow, so I really don't want to feel like crap. Right. Or I have, I'm stuffed. And when I eat like too much or anything like that, I feel really bloated. I feel like crap. And I really don't want to do that tomorrow. I don't want to do that later on today, because it's just going to wreck my night. Right. I feel really good. I'm really content. Saying stuff like that, again, it's true, first of all, and it's going to put that control and that confidence in your side, because it's not about being on a diet, because we're trying to maintain. We're trying to actually not feel like complete ass, right? So having that, rephrasing that will end up helping it a little bit. You could easily end up being like, oh, you know what? Just give it to me. I'll eat it. I'll take it home, right? I do this with my, with my mother a lot. Right. She always, no, you have to take this, you have to take this, you have to take this into like a little doggy bag. A lot of times I'll eat it a little bit. Most of the time I give it to someone else. Right. I give it to my father, or I throw it away, something like that. Right. Because again, it's not giving an excuse, because a lot of times they'll just keep on going, but you just end up doing that, gift it to someone else. If it's cookies or something like that, give it to a friend. Oh, hey, you want some cookies? I don't want them anymore. Right. Stuff like that. Right. Also understand the big underlining thing here. All of that stuff is actionable steps that you're not trying to restrict yourself. But the biggest thing is, most of the time people will say that stuff, right, because they're massively insecure in your choices, right? And by doing that, you might even get it in their heads a little bit that maybe they want to make a better choice, right? But most of the time when people bring that up, or they're constantly saying all stuff to you, or trying to force you into something that you don't want to do, they're massively insecure of the choices that they're making, and they're not willing to actually make a change, right? You are being a lot stronger, and you are actually trying to make a change, as long as it's the right way. So make sure you are understanding about that. That is 100% your choice. And honestly, most of the time, they're just not ready to make that change, and they're massively insecure because of that, right? So talked a lot about different things. Now, what happens if you go off the rails, right? All the other stuff was actionable steps. What happens when you completely go shitty, right? Everything goes off the rails. You massively overindulge. You feel a complete ass, both mindset and physical. Okay, so what ends up happening? Okay, biggest thing, no double workouts. Or don't wake up the next morning and fast. Right? Don't wake up the next morning like, I'm just going to not eat anything today. I'm going to outwork this. Right? Not a positive mindset. Right? It's a very, very negative thing, and it creates a bad relationship with working out, bad relationship with actually eating well. So those are the two things that you shouldn't do. One of the things you have to realize is your weight is going to be up. So if you're nervous about that, don't weigh yourself for a couple of days, right? Your weight will come back down. If you do weigh yourself all the time, just understand that it will be up. It's completely normal, right? It's all that bloat, right? All of those like high sugars, high carbs, high fats, all that stuff, your body is just massively bloated, right? With that, to beat the bloat, drink lots of water, right? It'll help out getting through the system, all the sugars and stuff like that, sort of holding on that water. Drink some water, stay hydrated, and that bloat will eventually come down. Next thing is to move normal, right? If you go work out, awesome. It's generally a really good time to PR lift, right? Because you have a lot of calories in your system. So you're actually probably going to lift a shit ton of weight if you do PR in the gym, right? But move normal, right? Go out to walk a little bit, maybe walk a little bit more. Nothing too stressful, right? But make sure we are a little bit more active. Try to refocus on one ingredient foods, right? Try to not to, not to just overindulge in all the other shit, right? If you have some trigger foods at home, throw them away, right? Give them to someone else. Remove yourself from this situation. But focus on one ingredient foods to get you back into the swing of things, right? And again, get rid of your triggers and evaluate the environment that is around you, okay? And that is going to be the biggest thing, all right? So all of that stuff is how to handle the holidays. And we have to understand what are the events? Do they actually matter? Okay. And what happens in all these different events? How can you go into it with having some control? So you're not just worried about restrictive dieting, saying I can't do shit, but you can actually include some of these things because they actually matter. If you do that, you create your vision, right? I'm going to still work out, right? I'm going to drink a bunch of water, right? And I am going to journal every single day, something like that. Create a vision for your holidays. It's going to be probably different than the fall and the spring and things like that, right? So that is the actionable steps, right? Hopefully you'll end up taking some of these and it'll end up benefiting you during the holidays. So it doesn't become a shit show, but you're also not just restricting. And more importantly, you don't turn into that all or nothing mindset. And then in January, you start right back over and trying to lose the next 15 pounds over the next couple months just to get back to normal. Okay. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. If you have a comment or anything like that during this one, hopefully you already made it, but you can easily make it again and I can easily answer any type of questions.